I'm Dana, a 40-year-old stepmother, and I never thought in a million years that I would be in a situation like this one. This was the summer that everything changed. My husband Lorenzo is a successful CEO. He looks at his phone every 10 seconds and is constantly glued to his computer. I appreciate everything he does for me, but because he works so much, I'm often alone and I feel neglected. As time passed, I kept feeling the desire for intimacy and company, wanting the passion that had slipped away from our relationship. I often wondered how to make this happen. Nighttime was especially lonely as I would lie there and listen to Lorenzo's footsteps heading to his office and the clacking of his keyboard when he was typing. I missed the affection he used to give me, his warm embraces and making me feel desirable. Then my mind would always wander to my stepson Tony, a very handsome 23-year-old who had just finished school and moved back home. He had always been well-mannered and respectful, but there was strong chemistry between us. Tony had grown into such an attractive young man. I often found myself secretly glancing at him. My heart would begin beating faster whenever we made eye contact. I knew that this was wrong, but every time I tried to put these feelings aside, they would come back stronger. One evening I got tired of waiting for Lorenzo to return home from work and decided to change out of the sexy black dress that I was going to wear for him. I made my way to this bedroom, and as I was unzipped it, I looked at myself in the mirror and sighed. I thought back about the days when I felt pretty and desired. I stepped out of the dress and removed my undergarments. Then suddenly I heard the door slowly creak open. It was Tony, who had returned home from a day out way earlier than I expected. He greeted me in his usual cheerful manner. My heart raced as I grabbed my robe to cover up, but it was too late. Tony looked me over and his eyes grew wider and wider. I had no idea you were changing. I didn't mean to intrude, he said quickly, averting his eyes away from me, but then he couldn't help himself and started looking at me again. It's okay, I said, trying to be cool about the whole situation. The human body is a completely natural thing. As I said this, I could feel my cheeks, it's turning bright red. We stood there awkwardly, without speaking for a moment. Tony started swaying from side to side as if something was seriously on his mind. He would look over at me and then he would look down at his feet. I guess I should go, he eventually said, stepping back towards the door. Hold on, you don't have to leave, let's talk, I said. The desire that we both had for each other was noticeable, and I knew I had to take it a chance. He hesitated for a moment and then stepped away from the door. Lately, I've been feeling really lonely, Tony. Lorenzo is hardly ever around, and when he is here, he's always in his office. I understand completely, Tony replied in a calm voice. He's just so busy all the time. I felt bold, so I took a deep breath and said, maybe you and I, just the two of us, could spend some time together. I was unsure of how his response would be, but it just so happened a smile came across his face. I would like that a lot, he replied. It was almost like a magnet was pulling us together. When I stepped closer to him, there was hardly any space between us anymore. We were just inches apart. I was so close to him that I could feel his body heat. There was undeniable chemistry between the both of us. Tony, I have to be honest with why I wow about something. I think about you a lot more than I really should, actually, I confessed, looking him deep in his eyes. I think about you a lot too, Tony admitted. As he stepped closer to me, he had a bit of nervousness in his voice at that moment. Any fears that I had went away, and I leaned it, pressing my lips against his. The kiss was innocent at first, but Then it deepened into a passionate one. It lit a fire in me that I haven't felt in a long time. Then I felt his hands around my waist and he began pulling me closer. When the kiss was over, I was out of breath and felt so much excitement tingling throughout my body. I know doing this is wrong, I mumbled. Then Tony replied, maybe it is, but it just feels so right. He had so much desire in his voice. I pulled him back and started kissing him again before the consequences of doing this could run through my mind. Again I ran up my fingers through his beautiful dark hair. I could feel his hands rubbing my back and the kiss got more passionate very quickly. I could feel the heat coming from his body as I pressed against him. I had all kinds of sensations going through my body with every touch. As we broke apart, I stared into his eyes. I saw the same mix of excitement and fear looking back at me. Are you sure you really want to do this? I whispered. Yes, I really want this. I've wanted this for a long time, he replied in a firm voice. With hearing those words, I felt really courageous. I grabbed his hand and led him to the bed. This whole thing didn't feel real, but I was ready for it. We sat on the end of the bed and I leaned in for another kiss. Tony's hands were all over my body. He was exploring every curve I could feel. The intensity between us, it was something I hadn't felt in a very long time. As I caressed his face, I looked into his eyes and saw desire. Don't hold back, I said boldly. I was impressed by my own confidence. Tony nodded his head and got undressed. I sat and watched in amazement. Then this time he leaned in for a kiss. He pressed against me and I could feel the eagerness in his touch. I rubbed both of my hands on his chest, feeling his muscles. This is when I knew I wanted more. I gently pushed him back on the bed. I straddled him as I kissed him deeply. He looked at me with a surprised yet excited expression on his face. I could feel his heart beating quickly beneath me, just like my own. I never imagined any of this would ever happen, he said breathlessly as he held onto my hips. Me neither, I said in a quiet voice. But let's not stop now, I continued, and with that we continued kissing. He responded to every touch I made on him. Our bodies were in sync with each other. I began touching his toned abdomen and feeling his soft, moist skin. When I did this, he moaned, and that sent shivers down my spine. As his hands began exploring my back, he let me know how incredible I was. That really gave me a confidence boost. I loved how he looked at me and pulled me closer to him. I want to feel you, I said seductively. Well, let's get to it, Tony replied. When it happened, I gasped from the thrill of excitement. As we made love, he kissed my collarbone, which lit a fire in me. The heat rose between us, and I didn't try to resist anything. He felt all over my body, and when he kissed me down my neck, every nerve in my body was filled with waves of pleasure. I arched my back as I moaned, and he continued with his trail of kisses down my body. Don't stop, I urged. I craved every touch. Tony then got really bold and held on to my waist. Then he turned us over so that he was on top, pinning me down against the bed. He had a mischievous look in his eyes, and then he leaned down for another kiss. I could feel electricity as his weight pressed down on me. The room began getting darker. As the sun went down, the only sounds to be heard were quiet whispers and our bodies moving together. Every touch and every kiss was more exciting than the one before. I lost myself in the moment and explored every inch of him. As the passion simmered down, we both embraced each other. We laid there together and caught our breath. Tony and I both looked into each other's eyes, and I had not felt a connection like this in a long time. Just as the both of us began to relax, I heard the front door being unlocked. Oh no, I said as I sat up, really Fast sounds like Dad's back from work. Tony replied, his eyes wide with panic. We had lost track of the time. We've got to move fast, I exclaimed as we scrambled to get our clothes on. We managed to get ourselves somewhat presentable when I heard Lorenzo's voice coming from the hallway. Are you home, Dana? He called out. Yes, I'm in the bedroom, I responded. My heart was about to beat out of my chest. When I looked over at Tony, he looked just as scared. Don't make a sound, I whispered to him. He nodded and eased into the closet just as Lorenzo walked in the room. When Lorenzo looked around at me, a big smile spread across his face. He asked me how my day was, and I tried to be as normal as I could when I answered. Then he let me know he was hoping that we could spend some time together. I forced a smile, but deep down and felt a mix of guilt and excitement. The presence of Tony was still in the air, and the thrill of what we had just shared. I had to clear my head of those thoughts and focus on spending time with Lorenzo. The evening was spent making small talk on the couch and watching television together, but my mind kept wandering back to Tony and the connection we had just made before Lorenzo came home. My heart pounded every time I thought about it, and I just couldn't ignore this feeling. A week later, Lorenzo was working late and I was home alone. The memory of Tony and I almost getting caught kept racing through my mind, so I decided to take a bath to calm my thoughts. I lit some candles and filled the tub with hot water, letting the steam soothe me as I soaked. Happy thoughts of Tony and I came to mind. The way he touched me and kissed Mimi made me know I just had to see him again. Right then I heard a quiet knock at the door. I grabbed a towel to wrap around me and answered it. Tony was standing there with a grin on his face. My pulse quickened because I didn't expect to see him. I told him to come in, and then I felt a rush of excitement go through me. I didn't mean to interrupt. He said, "It's fine," I replied. "I was just taking a bath. Is it okay if I join you?" he asked. I hesitated for a moment, happy at the thought of being near him again. Then I realized I just couldn't resist. "Sure. Come on in." I removed my towel while Tony got undressed, every part of me HDHD to touch his toned body. Both of us stepped into the tub and sat down in the hot water. We sat for a moment looking at each other nervously before leaning in for a heated kiss. The water splashed around us as he put his hands around my waist and pulled me close. We lost ourselves in the moment and the kissing became deeper. The warmth of his body against me made a fire burn within me. "You're so beautiful," he whispered, his breath warm against my lips. I was flattered, "and every time I see you, you're more and more irresistible," I said. I pushed him against the back of the tub and straddled him. Then I pushed my body against his, and a bunch of water soused out of the tub and onto the floor. But I didn't care. All I could think about was his skin next to mine. I ran my fingers down his chest, excited to feel his muscles. "You have no idea what you're doing to me," Tony said breathlessly. "Show me," I said. Then we began making love in the tub as the passion in the love making escalated and more water was sloshing and flying everywhere. We didn't even hear the front door open. Then all of a sudden the bathroom door opened. Lorenzo stood there for a moment with a shocked expression on his face. Then it changed to daggers in his eyes. "So this is what that noise was," he said, his voice booming like thunder. "I heard all this water sloshing, and I come in here to find you two doing your thing in the bathtub. I can't believe this," he hollered. "Dad, I can explain," Tony said. "Don't dad me. From this moment on I have no son," Lorenzo said, and then looked over at me. "Or wife." I swallowed hard. Then I tried to talk to him. "Lorenzo, please calm down and let's Talk about this, there's nothing to talk about. I want you both out. After that he left out the bathroom and in a frantic rage he grabbed the suitcases out of our closets and began tossing things in. Tony and I dried off and got our clothes in. We finished packing and left. Where will you go? Tony asked. I thought that we would go somewhere together, I replied. I'm gonna go live with my mom. She always said if I wanted to stay with her, I could, he said. I felt tears streaming down my face as I asked, but what about me? Something will work out, he replied. It's been fun and all, but I've got to go. I couldn't believe it. All along he was just having a good time. I wiped off my face and cleared my throat. Then I got out my cell phone and called my best friend Jenny to ask if I could stay with her. She said sure, so that's where I've been living and trying to get my life together. Sometimes I just sit and think about how dumb it was to throw away my good life for a forbidden romance. What was I thinking? I didn't have to worry about a thing, but now every day I have no clue where life will take me. All I knew was I had to eventually forgive myself and make the best out of how things were now, because I have no one else to blame but myself for what happened.